I choose to only think of thoughts. I choose to only think right thoughts. I choose to only think right thoughts. Rumor time, reflect. When my mind is upset, I can change my mindset. Do not be thrown offset. Rumor time, reset. Rumor time. Mind is upset. I can change my mindset. Do not be thrown offset. Rumor time, reset. Rumor time.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. We are here in season 3. What did I say? Season 3. So we are so excited. Yes, so excited to be here this evening and to be sharing this space with you. We have an amazing guest this evening. Amazing. Okay. And so we're going to talk some more about it. I am Dr. Yvonne Murray Laria. I am one of your hosts for the Access RUMERTIME Conversation podcast, season 3. This is our premiere show. Just in case you didn't know, what I want you to do, I'm going to steal something from one of the speakers that I listen to. Be an electronic evangelist, an Android apostle, a digital disciple, and share this link with as many people as you can. Okay, share this link with as many people as you can so that we can have a full house, because what we're talking about this evening matters, and it is important for you and the people that you associate with. All right. So I will let the rest of the team introduce themselves, and then I'm going to introduce our guest speaker.
Okay, just good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Geneva Fleming, bringing you greetings all the way from South Carolina. And I am so glad to continue being a host with this wonderful team here. Season 3, as Dr. Larry already pointed out, absolutely love it. And as she stated as well, I could not wait to engage our special guest today, Miss Farah Harris. So thank you all for joining in, and let's prepare for this conversation.
Awesome.
I'm Laverne Shaw Bailey. I live in Fargo, North Dakota, and I'm excited to share this space with these wonderful women and all the people who will join us to talk about emotions. And if you have emotions, then you are at the right place today, and we're glad to share this space with you.
That's it.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Vanessa Kelly Brew, and I am bringing you greetings from Elkhart, Indiana, the city with the heart. I'm so pumped to be here for season 3. And for those of you who have been with us, you will notice our new background. And so that's another exciting thing for us all. And so just like the rest of us here, we are so excited to have our guest, Farah, to help us kick off our season. So welcome.
All right. So Miss Farah, I'm going to try to do justice to you, but you can also, introduce yourself as well. But Farah Harris is a psychotherapist, an expert on workplace belonging and well-being dedicated to disrupting unhealthy work environments. She is the founder and CEO of Working Well Daily, a company that approaches workplace belonging and well-being from a psychosocial and emotional intelligence lens. Now, this is we all must be twins. We must be what, quadruplets, because that's what we do here at GC Squad. So let me
Quintuplets. We're quintuplets today.
quintuplets. There you go. Thank you. As a speaker, consultant, and now author, she has helped individuals and Fortune 500 companies develop healthier workplaces where leaders and teams have grown in their empathy, self-awareness, and socio-cultural awareness. She resides in the Chicagoland area with her husband and 3 children. And so we are so excited to have you here this evening, Ms. Farah Harris. And you will hear more from her when we get into that segment. You want to say anything quickly, and then we're gonna get into our education segment.
I'm just happy to be here. Thank you. Such a pleasure.
Okay, good to have you. All right, let's get to our education segment. All right, so this is our 10-year anniversary, as many of you may know, or those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. GC Squad is the Global Center for Systemic Change, Outcomes Research, Evaluation, and Development. At GC Squad, we believe every piece matters, and we are engaged and equipping and empowering individuals to renew their minds, transform their lives, and create safer and socially connected communities. All right. Geneva?
All right, we will start with the RUMERTIME prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and for this Access RUMERTIME Conversations podcast. We thank you for allowing us to be chosen to be here because we are special and we matter to you. I pray that you will help us to recognize, understand, manage, express, and reflect on thoughts, interactions, mindsets, and emotions that are helpful, kind, wise, uplifting, and courageous. I pray that all who watch and listen now and in the future would experience renewed minds, transformed lives, and they would be empowered to create safer and more socially connected communities wherever they are. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And to continue with the education piece, we always start with the education piece when we have our conversations. The mission of GC Squared is to renew minds, to transform lives, and to create safer and socially connected communities.
Awesome.
And so, what we talk about here at the ARC podcast are social emotional awareness skills. So, what is social emotional wellness and health? It is a person's ability to recognize, understand, manage, express, and reflect on their thoughts, their interactions, their mindsets, and emotions as it relates to self, others, and situations. Effectively utilizing these competencies engages, educates, equips, and empowers individuals of all ages, stages, and locations to successfully navigate daily activities such as loving, learning, earning, relationship building, problem solving, and adapting to the demands of growth and development.
Awesome. So the rumor time process is it's in the middle of our name, Access Rumor Time Conversations. So what is it? It first and foremost, the definition is It is a 5-step, culturally conscious and responsive problem-solving strategy that is used to engage, educate, equip, and empower individuals to move from inter and intrapersonal imbalance to inter and intrapersonal balance, and from unconscious living to conscious living. Again, the RUMERTIME process is a, what I would say, and what people are saying right now is it's a neurocycle. It's a 5-step neurocycle that is culturally conscious, culturally inclusive, culturally responsive problem solving strategy that is used to engage, educate, equip, and empower individuals to move from inter and intrapersonal imbalance to inter and intrapersonal balance, and from unconscious living to conscious living. And so that's the definition of the RUMERTIME process. But we know that RUMERTIME is an acronym. And the acronym, as you see here on this infographic, the acronym stands for recognize, the first R, understand, manage, express, and reflect on your thoughts, which is the T in the RUMERTIME, interactions, mindsets, and emotions. Again, so the R, the first R is recognize, the second letter is understand, third, manage, fourth, express, and fifth, reflect on your time, your thoughts, your interactions, your mindsets, and your emotions as it relates to yourself, to others, and your different various stories that you've experienced in the past, in the present, and how you're going to manage in the future. So that is the RUMERTIME process definition and the acronym. Let's go to the last slide. So at GC Scored, we have what we call our own mental health manifesto. How do we conceptualize mental health? And GC Scored views mental health from a social, ecological, cognitive, behavioral, and emotional perspective. We believe that to achieve triadic balance, we must intentionally and consciously integrate the roots, such as relational capacity building skills, or as we will talk about, emotional intelligence skills, and the conditions. What are the conditions surrounding the individuals learning these skills or integrating what is happening at the root level? What are the conditions and resources at home, at school, at work, in the community? What are the conditions and the resources that have historically impacted how we show up in the present, right? So all of these things come together, all these factors come together to help us grow in a healthy and balanced way. And we interpret many symptoms and behaviors, feelings, labels, and diagnoses. We interpret these as fruits, outgrowths, and manifestations of the activities happening at and around the root level. So that is what this is the lens, right? What a manifesto is the lens or the perspective or the framework through which we interpret and we understand and we implement any activities surrounding mental health. And so this is the context in which we are having our discussion today, but this is the context in which GC Scored operates, right? Everything that comes out of our organization operates from these foundational processes, definitions, and frameworks. All right, so I think we are now finished with our education segment, and we are expecting and hoping that you will engage with us throughout this session. You put right in the chat if you're on Facebook, You can also get in on the conversation as well on YouTube, wherever you are being connected with us right now. We want to see your comments and your questions. All right. So, Miss Farah Harris,
Yes, ma'am.
several things just blew me away. The book blew me away. And I want to start with the intersection between the color of emotional intelligence, elevating our self and social awareness to address inequities, written by none other than Farah Harris. I want to show the intersectionality between your book, your international bestseller, #1 bestseller, and the RUMERTIME process, and how it fits the synergy between these two concepts and interventions and strategies, how they show up to be able to empower individuals, especially individuals of color, how it intersects, um, to make almost a pathway for us to provide increased access to practicing in an authentic way the emotional intelligence as well as the RUMERTIME process. And one of the things I want to say here, I want to start off with one of your quotes that really kind of underlines some of your foundational premises. It says on page 4, you say, yet emotional intelligence is the most overhyped, underutilized, and misused skill that I can think of. And then you went further on at the bottom of that page, you said, emotional intelligence is not a skill exclusively meant for professional development. And that resonated so much with what we at GC Score talk about. So much so, we have a quote that says, as air is to life, so are social emotional competencies to relationships. They are like the air we breathe. We can replace social emotional competence with emotional intelligence because those are interchangeable. They have the same elements, right?
Yes.
And when you said here, it is misused, underutilized, and overhyped. And I totally vibe with that, totally, because when we talk about social emotional wellness, social emotional education, social emotional learning, it is very different than what mainstream talks about and how they relate to it. We talk about it as the quote says, it is the air that is like the air we breathe. Without air, we will what? We will die. And we see social emotional competencies, we see emotional intelligence in a similar vein. If we do not practice emotional intelligence, social emotional skills, if we do not practice them, our relationships with self and others and in different spaces will die. They will not thrive. And so that is where I see how our frameworks, our ideologies and concepts about emotional intelligence and the RUMERTIME process intersecting and converging. What do you have to say about what inspired you? First, the cover of the book. Please tell us about that. It is amazing. It is, I love it. It is vibrant. It's like abstract art, tell us about it. Then tell us about what made you decide. What was the motivator behind the color of emotional intelligence?
Yeah. Okay. That's a lot.
Yes.
First of all, just being able to learn, the introduction and breaking down the tenets and the mission of your organization, I was just like, oh, that's my book. Like there's so much alignment there. In breaking down the acronym of RUMERTIME is literally the practice of emotional intelligence, right? And so I'm sitting here just, trying to be, I'm on camera, so I'm trying to be still, but I'm sitting here just like, yes, like all of this, yes, 100% agree with it because, and I think your quote is very poignant about, if we don't have air, if we don't have oxygen, we will die, we will perish. And if we don't have healthy relationships within ourselves and with others, pretty much our society, falls apart. And we've seen it, we're seeing it now. And so that's what was one of the reasons why I was so excited to do the show with you, is because of the alignment with our beliefs and our perspectives about how the skill is not, and I say it in the book, it's not a soft skill, it's a strength skill, because it takes so much strength to be able to be honest with ourselves. It takes so much strength to look in the mirror and go, "Ooh, okay, that's not cute. That thing that I've said, well, I'm always going to be this way. Why? Why are you always going to be this way? Does it benefit you? No." So that change in addressing certain behaviors that we do, it takes strength to really try to see another person's perspective, and try not to be the one to be trumping the conversation or winning for the sake of winning. So it's a strength skill. And to your question about the cover, so I'm going to try to make sure I can condense the story as best as I can to the viewers. I have ADHD, so everything is interconnected. So I'm going to try not to chase too many squirrels as we have a conversation. But with my publisher, we had a book cover contest. And so we had all these different graphic designers, and I have a background in the arts. So I actually had a cover that I had designed first, but I was like, I'm always curious to see what people come up with when they hear the concept of the color of emotional intelligence. They hear the title. What will people come up with? And we had, I think, 5 or 6 covers. And when this graphic designer gave me this one, yes, Dr. Geneva's like trying to hold it up. I was like, ooh, that's different. I never pictured anything like this, but this is speaking to me. And it was funny because even my publisher was like, I can't choose for you, but this is the favorite in the office. And but there was another cover that, for my graphic designers, understand that we're all about white space and the location of things. And there was another cover that was simple, very clean, very great use of color. But it was probably a cover that, you've probably seen a million times. And I was wrestling with the options. I was like, oh, there's too many options now. I don't know which one I want. And I had to make the decision on, do I pick the cover that is safe, or do I pick the cover that I will regret the least? And that was pretty much how I came up with choosing the color for a cover, because also my background is in marketing. So pre-becoming a therapist, I had several lives. And so I was like, as a marketer, in your mind, you want to do something that attracts someone's eye. And in a bookstore, you would want someone to go, well, what's that about? And to be able to pick up the book. So even if they had no clue about what emotional intelligence is, they can pick up the book because it seems pretty and interesting, and learn about it. But also, I talk about how many of us, especially people who are Black or part of the global majority, show up as a fragment of ourselves, or we mask, and we may hide our true identity because we are in spaces that are not necessarily safe for us. So when I looked at the cover, it had a lot of colors. So obviously that matched with the title, but it also looked like masks, and the different colors and the different masks that we put on when we show up in different spaces. So, but yeah, that's kind of the background to how I picked the cover. It was just like, I don't think I will regret this. I think if I don't choose it and I go with the safer, beautiful cover, but safer cover, I will always wonder what would have happened if I had picked the other cover. And I didn't want to have that, because I don't believe in living with regrets. And I think your second or your third question was about how did I even come up with this concept
to write this book? Yeah,
I was sharing with you ladies before we hit live, was that it just kind of was downloaded to me in a conversation with at that time, a potential corporate client. It was 2020. We were in a pandemic. This was still while we were kind of shut down. George Floyd had been murdered. We were getting news of Elijah McClain's murder. We were still grieving Breonna Taylor. So there were all of these conversations of creating these safe spaces, these healing circles for the Black employees in the workplace. And this one company had asked me, can you come in and create a session for them? And they had already had different clinicians come, different speakers, and I'm all about impact. So I said, I don't want to repeat the same thing. I don't want to do another self-care session. What is it that you guys are looking for? And I remember her, just kind of saying like, well, we're going through a lot of changes. And I said, yeah, I'm expecting some layoffs, because this was an organization that did a lot of live events and nothing was live in this time of 2020. And so I know they weren't making any money. And I said, how are you communicating change in your organization? Is there someone who has come in and trained about emotional intelligence and how it's a skill set that is great for being agile and being resilient when there's change, the ebbs and flows in life? And as I'm talking, since she specifically wanted me to talk to her Black employees, I said, and do your Black employees understand that they're using emotional intelligence differently when they come to the workplace, that they're using it as a sense of a source of survival versus self-care? And it was like, as I'm talking, my husband calls me the queen of riffing. Like, I'm like, I promise you I ain't talking off the side of my neck, but these are just the thoughts that are flowing. And I was like, oh, so am I talking? I said, I like this idea. And they had a very small budget, to which I almost said no. But then I said, I'm more curious about creating this training than I am about getting paid for it. So I'm going to say yes. So I created the training. And at that time, it was very much specific to the Black experience. However, I had asked and challenged her if we can do it with mixed company. And she said, no, this is just for the Black employees. But sure enough, everybody in the comments was like, I really wish our white colleagues were here, which is what I was trying to explain. It doesn't make sense for me to give you skills and tips to care for yourself and send you back to the place that continuously harms you. I wanted the white colleagues to understand that their Black colleagues were not coming as their most authentic self, their most safe self, their most best self. So it began to grow. Other organizations were asking for the same talk. And as I was doing it, I felt like God was saying, it's more than that. It's anybody who's been systemically or historically marginalized. As women, we know that we are on alert if we walk into a room full of men. We are deciding, do I play up my femininity to make me safe? Or do I lower my voice and try to sound very much more authoritative to show that I'm not afraid? Those code switching, masking, behaviors, all of us do when we're in places where we are the minority, where we are the one that could potentially be othered. So I shared that I have ADHD. So for those of us who are neurodivergent, for those of us who have some type of disability, our age, any of these things in any system that creates some type of oppression or othering, I felt like God was like, expand it so that everyone can actually see themselves in this book. And so I thought it would be done in 6 months. It took almost 2 years, but everything in its divine time.
Exactly.
But it was literally a conversation with a corporate client to do a talk on like a healing space for Black employees. And it turned out to become this book that we have right now.
That is awesome. That is awesome. There's always a story. And in your book, one of the things that we do in GC Score, we talk about people's stories. We do not talk about presenting problems. We talk about stories. Because I have no right to say, oh, what is your presenting problem? No, it's a problem to who? It is my story. You don't have the right, nobody has the right to say, well, tell me your presenting problem. No, tell me your story.
That's
Because
good.
it makes it like there's already a presumption that what I am saying is a problem to you. And it's just my story. And you talk about that on page 52. You talk about, as a result of our past, our responses to current situation can be referred to as our emotional narrative or our story. And Geneva is going to want you to expand some more on that.
Yeah, I'm going to try to keep my question simpler, but I want to just echo the significance of the soft skills and strength skills. And you're absolutely right. My colleagues have heard me share a lot that emotional intelligence or social emotional competencies are not for children only. Remember the old commercial that says orange juice is not only for breakfast. Well, that the same applies to social emotional and emotional intelligence. It is definitely not just for breakfast, and for sure just not for children only. And that's one of the biggest misnomers. But I want to fast forward to the chapter that Dr. Larry just mentioned. I believe it's in chapter 6, where you talk to them about self-awareness. And your quote is, "For us to become self-aware, we must uncover our own stories." And, as true as that is, that statement was, I'm recognizing the challenge in that, right? Because to say it sounds like a simple thing, but one of the tenets, what's embedded in our definition of the RUMERTIME process is to help individuals move from unconscious living to conscious living. And, everything in between, of course, is a process. So self-awareness for us is aligned with the very first of the 5 pieces in the RUMERTIME process, is to recognize, right, where we identify, admit, we acknowledge what's going on. The challenge here for me is most people don't know what they don't know, and they may not even recognize that they are not living consciously. So, I mean, how do you unpack that? Help us unpack that for the audience. Folks kind of go day to day and they think, I got this, I'm all that. And I mean, how often does a person question the root, the root of the matter? We're in this society where everything is how I feel. I feel like, but
Yeah.
do we ever take time to go deeper, go beyond the feeling to check where that feeling is coming from, and to open that box? Could be a Pandora's box, but to dare to get to the root so that true awareness comes forth. Help us
Yeah.
unpack that about conscious living versus unconscious living, and us really being authentically self-aware.
Yeah, that's such a great question. Those emotional narratives, those stories, how do we uncover that? How do we, quote unquote, grow in our awareness? I think a lot of it is just to be still, and not many of us are comfortable with that. And I say that awareness is it's like a two-way mirror, right? So it's not just you going, oh, I'm aware of this in myself. It's getting the feedback from other people. I say in my book, it's like looking in the mirror and then walking away and forgetting what you look like. You need somebody to also go, hey, Dr. Geneva, can I tell you how I'm experiencing you? And people don't want that type of feedback. People want the praise.
Right.
People want affirmation. People want, it's bringing up a story where I have a friend of mine who has an employee who literally said that she's like, I don't want feedback unless it's praise. Literally said that.
Oh my.
And she was like, okay, we really are going to have to elevate your EQ because like her emotional quotient was so low.
Right.
And we do this for a reason. Because if our stories are riddled with trauma, we don't want to open that box because we have not learned how to manage the emotions that come up with whatever is going to be in that story. Am I going to have to deal with grief? Am I going to have to deal with my anger? Am I going to have to deal with disappointment? If these are certain emotions that come from my story, I'd rather not deal with that. And this world has really, in this day and age, made it easy for us to just keep moving, right? We're just always on to the next. There's not a moment of practicing the pause because we can just scroll on Instagram, or we can go ahead and distract ourselves from being present with who we are and with our stories. And so in the book, I'm challenging people. I'm like, I need you to practice the pause. I need you to slow down. I need you to be aware of the feeling. I need you to name it. I need you to understand, where did it come from? When that person interrupted you in the meeting and you cussed them out, and everybody's looking at you like, where did that come from? I understand that was rude, but the response was just way greater than the offense. More than likely, it's probably because it comes from a story of not being heard, or by not, feeling significant, by being ignored. Or maybe it's this person, and you may not have done that to anybody else, but this person triggers something because they remind you of fill in the blank.
Exactly.
And so it's one of those things, like I love how you said that unconscious living. It's like when you are not uncovering your story, you're just out here, and you are showing up, you are behaving in ways that everybody else is unfortunately having to experience. And you can't understand the root of it because you haven't taken the time to investigate it.
That's right.
So it's different saying, I'm angry because my mom did this or my dad did this. That's not saying it's an excuse, but you at least can start from a beginning to recognize the reason, and then move to a space with, therapy, prayer, wise counsel to go like, now that you understand the reason, we need to address how you respond though going forward, so that your future relationships aren't having to pay for their what's the word, collateral damage because of something that's happened to you in the past.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's actually some conversation about that in the chat. Loislyn Patrick says, I'm still working on trying to be me and not put on a quote mask according to how I perceive a situation. And Tomas says, when you've worn a mask for so long, it can be difficult to bring forth your story.
Yeah. And most of the time, the reason why we wear the mask is not, and I don't fault anyone for wearing a mask, because we put on the mask as a safety precaution.
Mhm.
Something has happened to us that made us go, it's not safe to be me. So let me put this on so that I can navigate, and I can't remember what chapter I say this, but I say, oftentimes we have found ways to become dysfunctional versions of ourselves to create functional relationships.
Mhm.
And so when we're putting on this mask, we are not our best. It is impacting our well-being. We are, because we're not fully being free to process even the hurt that we may be feeling in that moment, the disappointment. If we're talking about code switching and masking at work, if you are a Black person or a person of color, we don't want them to be upset. We already are sitting here not sure if we can get promoted. We're not sure if it's if this would be the reason why they let us go. So let me not make Jake upset, even though Jake just racially aggressed me. I will deal with this later. And I'm not going to make them feel bad, even though they made me feel bad.
Right.
So when we're unmasking, it really takes time. We have to give ourselves grace. But I always say, when you start to slowly unpeel it, make sure you're doing it in safe spaces. Don't unmask in a spot that you use it for your protection.
Thanks.
Slowly start becoming comfortable with unmasking yourself in safer spaces so that you can build that resilience and that strength, so that when you actually start going, okay, now that I'm here in whatever space, whatever relationship that is, that I usually put on a mask, I have now become more comfortable with myself, that I don't need it here anymore. Because I now can use my voice. I now know how to use my boundaries. I know how to articulate whatever it is that I need. I know what other resources I have, so that I don't feel like I'm, exposed, and so it takes time, but I don't fault anyone for not choosing to remove their mask.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. That was a really good explanation on the masking. And so you see how many
And
things.
unconscious living, absolutely.
Yeah, and unconscious living. Who knew? Who knew that the cover of the book would be so powerful and profound? So we have some comments, but before we get to the comments, who has the next question for Farah? Or should we do the comment? Should we focus on somebody's saying empowering individuals from the inside out? Said, can you share your thoughts on the victim mentality and emotional intelligence? Those are two different things. Emotional intelligence is being self-aware. Emotional intelligence is being same as the RUMERTIME process. Emotional intelligence is self-awareness skills, self-management skills, relationship management skills, social awareness skills, and responsible decision-making skills. So you can't compare victim mentality with emotional intelligence, because those are two different ways of being, right?
Yes. I'm wondering if this person is asking, how does EQ play a role in the victim mentality? Because the thing is, with emotional intelligence, there's high emotional intelligence and there's low emotional intelligence. And so if there is this victim mentality, more than likely it's a low self-awareness and low self-management that is happening. It's like, how can I, because it can be very manipulative, right? When you show up with this victim mentality, the woe is me, because this is now to give attention to me, because there's something that I'm lacking. And so, when we're talking about emotional intelligence, we need to, it's the EQ is your quotient, how much do you have?
What's your bandwidth? What's your bandwidth?
do you have about feelings? And so if you have limited understanding and breadth of your emotions and that of other people, then yeah, you may show up with a victim mentality. You may show up as manipulative. You may show up as uh, entitled or self-centered. And so it's usually because there's something is not being regulated in a healthy way.
That's a good. I like that. I like that. So yeah. So
Farah,
Yes.
I get tripped up on this actually. My question was supposed to come later, but I'm just going to throw it at you now. So, so this idea of high emotional intelligence and low emotional intelligence, I get tripped up on that, and I also got tripped up on it reading your book, where it seems like high emotional intelligence is characterized by being calm, being cool, being collected, and low emotional intelligence is characterized by being quote unquote emotional, right? Like raising your voice, yelling. Okay, I see your head. So I'm just telling you what trips me up, right?
Yeah.
And so my understanding may be incorrect, and I think there may be other people who have a misunderstood interpretation of what you're saying, right? But this is kind of what I often come away with, that high emotional intelligence is the person who in every situation, they can just keep it together. They're calm, they're cool, they're collected.
No.
And to what extent, okay, so if I am misunderstanding how that is, and maybe you've already discussed it and I still didn't get it, but if I didn't get it, then there's other people who don't get it.
Yeah. No, it's a great question.
Just kind of explain, what does it really mean? If it doesn't mean that I'm calm, cool, and collected to show high emotional intelligence, what does it look like? Like if somebody, runs me off the road and I yell in my car, like maybe that is a great example of me being emotionally intelligent.
I don't know. Great question. It's such a great question.
So take my question and run with it.
No. I love this question. And I think it's important that you ask this question because we are not always cool, calm, and collected. And I state in my book that there is no finish line. There's no ceiling. There's no person that's highly emotionally intelligent all the time. There's not like, okay, I've done all these courses. I've taken all these tests. Now I am the high EQ queen. Like, no, it's just not going to happen. However, I say that there's a low emotional, how can I say this? There can be a low emotional intelligent reaction followed by a high emotional intelligent response. And so that meaning for all y'all who have kids, y'all can feel me. It is hard to be a parent. Okay. So there may be moments where I am short, I am impatient. I may raise my voice to my child because of something that may have nothing to do with them, right? It could just be, I say I'm a walking Snickers commercial. I need to eat. If I do not eat, I become hangry, right? That has nothing to do with my child. Or maybe they're triggering something else in me where it's like, I don't feel like I have control in the moment. I want them to do something and they're not doing it. And therefore I'm becoming quick-tempered. That doesn't mean that after I've taken a moment to practice the pause and calm myself down, that I go back and say, hey, when mommy started to raise her voice at you, that wasn't fair to you. I was upset. And I was upset because of X, Y, and Z. But because sometimes the way we would talk to our child is not the way we would talk to another adult. Right? We will give less respect to a child because we believe they are just, smaller people or less significant. But they're still spiritual beings that still need to be valued and respected.
And maybe even less threatening.
There you go. There you go. And so, yeah, we assert our age, our height, our physical self as greater than. So, yeah. So I feel like we move through feelings The thing is, are we letting the feelings in chapter 3? No, is it chapter 3? Chapter 2 is the walk the dog, right? Are our feelings walking us, or are we walking with our emotions? If someone cuts you off, it's natural to be upset. But everyone responds differently. Some people walk their dog very well that they can be upset and not start cussing somebody out and have road rage, right? Because we both have the same experience. So Laverne, you can sit here and just be like, man, they just cut. I hope they get to wherever they got to go, and then you move on and you drive to where you're supposed to go. And someone cuts me off and now I'm following them because how dare they cut me off? And I'm cussing, I'm rolling down my window, I'm honking. Both of us were upset, but one of us let our emotions take over and the other one had their emotion and moved forward. So when we're talking about practicing high EQ, it's not that you're necessarily cool, calm, and collected all the time. It's that you recognize that you're upset and you're not using that emotion to drive your behavior. Does that make sense?
It does. That difference between reaction and response, that you can have a low emotional reaction, but a high emotional response at the same time.
Yeah.
Light bulb.
Okay. Yeah. It's like after you write the book, you're like, oh man, there's extra stuff that I could have said that could have expounded. But I mean, that's why there's other editions, right? So there may be in another few years a new edition that helps to explain certain things a little bit more. But I'm so glad you asked that question because I do think a lot of people go like, well, that's not me. I'm a very emotional person. There's nothing wrong with being emotional. We are all emotional beings, but some of us don't know how to create boundaries or manage and regulate those emotions in healthy ways. And it can then be detrimental to ourselves and to other people in our relationships. And so, yeah, we can have a high EQ after having a low EQ moment. So in a meeting, if you were, not kind in the meeting, someone will trust you more if you go, hey, Laverne, I know during the meeting, I ignored you or I dismissed your feedback. That's not right. I should not have said that. I should not have raised my voice at you with everybody else. I apologize. Please, can you tell me more about the thoughts that you had? Then you go, oh, wait, I think I can trust Farah. Like she owns her stuff. She messed up. She held herself accountable. I think I can now follow through and follow up with her going forward instead of someone who just blows up at every meeting and never apologizes, never holds himself accountable. You don't want to work for a leader that way because they're being emotional.
Yeah.
Well, I just cut somebody off in a conversation yesterday. So thank you very much. I need to go back and do a little bit of high emotional response work.
There we go. Thank you for that. Vanessa.
Yeah. So, Farah, you were just talking about it. And so the question that I have centers around an example that you gave in the book about a couple who was in divorce court. And and actually, I found that really funny because I remember watching that. I remember watching this episode on divorce court. And the situation was the wife was there, and her way of managing her emotions was to hum. And every time something her husband would say that she disagreed with, she'd hum a little louder. And then when her husband's mistress came into the court, she really started like humming, and then she started singing her responses. And that is what I wanted to know. So that was she stated to the judge that was her way of managing her emotions. However, it was very disruptive in the courtroom
Mhm.
And so I wondered if you could talk to us a little bit about what are some helpful ways versus some harmful ways of managing our emotions.
Yeah. I'm glad you remember or you saw the clip, because I remember when I first watched it and I was dying. I was like, this is hilarious. Because yes, when that mistress started to talk, she was like, just, you came from the belly. She was humming.
Oh my goodness.
But what I appreciated in that moment was that, when we're talking about emotional intelligence, I say that when you really know yourself, you can now lead the narrative so you don't leave anybody confused about why you're showing up the way you're showing up. So when she told the judge, I've learned this through anger management. This is how I regulate my emotions, because I know the judge was like, why is this woman humming? Why are you singing? And then she was just like, this is how it's keeping me together to, decrease my anger. Yes, it was disruptive, but it allowed for some grace from those who were in the courtroom and from the judge, because now she was able to clearly articulate. This goes to the relationship management piece, effective communication. She was able to effectively communicate, this is what I'm doing to regulate my emotions right now. Thank you for letting me say that. I'm aware that it's disruptive. So then she tried to, get a little quieter, but, it was a hot mess. So of a situation. So there was a lot of singing that was happening. But for all of us, my challenge is to ask yourself, is the form of regulation that I have harmful, meaning harming me and somebody else? So there are people who regulate themselves by having a lot of sexual partners. There are people who regulate themselves by drinking. Oh, I just need a glass of wine. And then before you know it, it's the whole bottle and you're doing this daily. Some people, and I'm not, again, to your audience, I'm not saying you can't have no wine. Jesus done blessed the wine, okay? I'm not saying, to not do certain things, but to ask yourself, will you regret it later? Will it cause harm to you later? Will you have an issue that comes from this? Like you decided to deal, for those of us who are clinicians, we understand that oftentimes when people are taking drugs or doing certain type of activities, you may feel like you don't have the problem in the moment after you got high. But once the high is gone, that problem is still there. And now you've created an addiction to address the problem. So now you got another problem that you have to deal with.
Yes.
So I'm always asking, how are you regulating that actually serves you, that serves you well? So is it going for a walk? Is it having a conversation with the girlfriend? Is it singing? Is it, counting to 10? And I said in the book, some of y'all may need to count to 100, deep breathing. Is it prayer? Is it dancing? Like these, eating foods that actually are life-giving and not going, let me just have this whole box of ice cream, because then later you feel bad that you had a whole tub of ice cream. You get on the scale and you're now having to process other emotions of shame and guilt, that kind of stuff. But I would also challenge all of us who are listening is that we also have to be careful on how we judge how people regulate themselves. Being part of the neurodivergent community, if you are someone who's autistic or have ADHD, there's ways of stimming, which is self-regulating, and it could be humming. It could be tapping your leg. Yeah, I can understand that may annoy somebody else, but this is why so many people mask, because it's like, oh, if I do this with my nose. There's somebody that I follow on Instagram where she has this, thing with her nose, and she would hide that. And she's like, I'm no longer hiding that. Like, this makes me feel good, and it's like, why do we, when we see things that seem atypical, judge it, even though it's like, what does that do for your life? that they're sniffing.
Right. How does that impact you?
How does that impact you?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we do need to be kind and recognize, oh, that there are certain things I may do that really may disrupt somebody. Like if someone's studying, this is not the time for you to start singing opera. You know, this is where you may want to sing opera. You may need to go to another room, or you may need to, go someplace else if you are trying to manage that relationship well. Where it's like I don't want to get into an argument with my roommate or with my girlfriend or whomever. I need to go do this someplace else, and at the same time to practice that empathy and recognize, oh, maybe this person needs to do this, so I'll just put on headphones while they do whatever. So
Yeah. Awesome. This has been a exhilarating conversation, and we can go on for days because all of us on this chat love to talk. And whether you want to say it's high EQ or low EQ, we just love being able to have these kinds of conversations in these safe spaces. And I just want to thank Farah Harris for writing this book and taking the challenge to do it. And on our screen, you will see a QR code leading you to the book on Amazon. You can put your phone up to it and go purchase the book. And I believe Farah has a weekly meeting.
Yeah, I'm stretching myself. So we have a book club on LinkedIn, LinkedIn Live. It's on replay. So if you aren't able to make it, I'm really trying to navigate around my kids' schedule. So it's not always the same time every week.
Okay.
But I'm making sure that it is every week, and we're going through chapter by chapter, just highlighting and having the discussion. So we've done the first 2 chapters. We're now this Thursday, I believe at noon Central Time. I'll be on LinkedIn Live, and we'll be going through chapter 3, which is the domains of emotional intelligence. So we'll be talking about the self-awareness and the management with self and with others.
So yes.
So just look for your name on LinkedIn.
If you just look up Farah Harris LCPC, I should pop up. And if you can't join with the lives on LinkedIn, they automatically have the replay available. So you can actually go back and see the first 2.
Awesome. Thank you. And we want to thank everyone for joining us. We want to thank Tamara Rouse, then Tamara Lucas, then Accelerate Strategy and Leadership. Then we have Danielle Brown.
Tell Danielle, yes, you got it correct. I'm looking at the comments.
Yes, Danielle, you got it correct. Who else? Kalisha. Welcome Tea Party, Social Empowering Individuals. Loislin, Pretty, D-Rod. We want to thank all of you for coming this evening, and make sure and join us again on our next episode is on September 24th. And we have another author, and her name is Nicole Valentine, and she's written a couple of books that also focuses on mental health. And so we look forward to seeing you on the 24th, same time, same station, same time, same station. And if we can give one parting word, the host and the guest on this show, what would it be? What would be that one word, or maybe a short sentence? Who wants to start?
RUMERTIME and EI. Bosom buddies.
Okay. Yeah.
I just love that, Farah. helped to give me clarification. And I think as we see in the chat that her discussion of that concept gave other people clarification. So that was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I don't know, this is short, but I'm just, again, so thankful for you being here, Farah, and for helping us to understand what emotional intelligence is. So thank you again for gracing us.
Yes. And I just want to say, as we close off this evening, well, Farah, you haven't said anything. You go ahead and say, and then I'll close off.
I've said a lot.
What is the takeaway for you? What's the takeaway for you?
I love Tamara's takeaway, where it's like, be self-aware. I think, self-awareness is the bedrock of emotional intelligence. So the more you know yourself, the more you can show up as your best self.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you. And I will close with, as air is to life, so are social emotional competencies or emotional intelligence is to relationships. They are like the air we breathe. I wish you all well. Be blessed. And we will see you all on the 24th of Sunday, September 24th. And also join Farah on LinkedIn Live. We want to encourage people to support Farah and support GC Squad, because the work that we're both doing is absolutely necessary for us to continue creating civil society, which we know right now our societies are very uncivilized. So have a great rest of the weekend, and we will see you all on September 24th.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
I choose to only think of thoughts. I choose to only think kind thoughts. I choose to only think right thoughts. Rumor time, reflect. When my mind is upset, I can change my mindset. Do not be thrown offset. Rumor time.
The RUMERTIME process, and I came across this quote: behind every behavior is a belief.
Whatever setting you go to, whether you're at church, whether you're at school, whether you may be having
I was able to analyze a little bit more,
bringing about real positive.
In order for me
changes.
to be effective, I have to be reflective. And this training
I gather an appreciation for reflecting. And I
take it from just something that's inside to getting it in a tangible form, getting it out from
fulfilling and rewarding to see the kids who coming and they sincerely growth in them. They became more reflective in their thinking, to see children grow and not just see but to be a part of it.
What I have learned in camp about RUMERTIME is that it's a process for solving problems we face in our lives.
A lot of my stress, and then I begin to enjoy and spend time on the things that really make me happy.
I recommend this training to all age, from kindergarten.
Before you do that thing that you'll regret, or say that thing.
if you breathe and think, you should have this training. I would recommend this to everyone.